नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी यति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Thank you for joining this morning's reading. Let me share the screen here and share the link. We'll continue with our chanting of Brahma Samhita. Here is the screen and here is the link. Would anybody like to chant? We'll continue with chanting the first 10 verses of Brahma Samhita.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dharma Pranam. I can chant Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji, please.
First and the system. ईश्वरः परमा कृष्ण सच्चिदानन्दविग्रह अनादिरादिर्गोविन्द सर्वकारणकारणं त्रया प्रभुदत्ता विधिर्विज्ञात तत्त्वसागर तुष्टव वेदशरणे स्तोत्रेणानेन केशवम् चिन्तामणिप्रकरसन्देषु कल्पवृक्ष लक्षाव्रतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तं लक्ष्मीसहस्रशतसम्भ्रमानसेव्यमानं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि वेणुं कवनान्तम् अरविन्ददलयताक्षं बरहावतांसम् असितबुधसुन्दराङ्गं कन्दर्पकोटिकमनीयविशेषशोभं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि मूलचन्द्रकलसत्वनमाल्यवंशी रत्नां गदं प्रणयकेलिकलाविलासं श्यामं त्रिभङ्गललितं नियतं प्रकाशं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अङ्गानि यस्य शकलेन्द्रियवृत्तिमान्ति पश्यान्ति पान्ति कलयान्ति चिरां जगान्ति आनन्दचिन्मयसाधुज्ज्वलविग्रहस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अद्वैतम् अच्युतम् अनादिम् अनन्तरूपम् आदिं पुराणपुरुषं नवयौवनं च वेदेषु दुर्लभम् अदुर्लभम् आत्मभक्तौ गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि पन्थास्तु कोटिशतवत्सरसम्प्रभाग्यो प्रगम्यो वायुरथापि मनसो मुनिपुङ्गवानां सोऽप्यति यत् प्रपदसिम्नि अविचिन्तया तत्त्वे गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि एकोऽपि अस्सु रचयितुं जगत् अण्डकोटिं यश्चित्तिरस्ति जगत् अण्डचयायत् अन्तः अन्दान्तरस्थतः परमाणु चयान्तरस्थं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यद्भावभावितधियो मनुजस्तथैव सम्प्राप्य रूपमहिमासनयानभूषणः शुक्तिर्यम् एव निगम प्रथितः सुत्वन्ति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Anybody would like to read translations?
Prabhu, if nobody is available,
Yes, Mataji.
Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime causes of all causes. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri embodying the three Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with this hymn. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is apt in playing on his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head bedecked with peacock's feather, in the figure of beauty tinged with hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, around whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with flute and jeweled ornaments, who always reveals his pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyamasundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fleshed function of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning, the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayam by drilling the respiration, or by the Gyanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of mundane extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is the present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and at the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I adore the same Govinda, the same primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, tones, conveniences, and ornaments. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much for reading the translations. I was just getting reminded of yesterday's class by Her Grace Urmila Mataji, how wonderfully she gave us the idea of meditating on Krishna in this material world, and seeing Krishna in everything that is around us. And here in Brahma Samhita it is also stated that all the universes exist within him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe. And it is so wonderful. While we chant, we can see everything around us, and we can correlate everything to Krishna: the sound, the light, the heat, the energy, the material energy, the spiritual energy. It is so wonderful to see Krishna like this everywhere, where we can be Krishna conscious, not just at the time of japa, but also throughout our day. So thank you so much. We'll continue with our reading of Leelamrit. I would share the link here in the chat as well. Anyone who would like to read today? If not, then I can continue. So I'll start here. Prabhupada recalled the first San Francisco temple, the first Los Angeles temple, going to Seattle, pushing Gaurasundara to go to Hawaii, receiving a letter from Govinda Dasi in Hawaii, who said that it was mango season, except that when Prabhupada went there, it was rat season, and all the night the rats were running in the rafters. This is a new life, this Krishna consciousness, said Srila Prabhupada. There is no doubt about it. His thoughts returned to his upcoming tour, and he said he could sleep in 3 seats across in the airplane, but he cautioned the devotees to be careful that once he got to America, he not get kidnapped. Previously, he had considered that Krishna may have been detaining him from going to West so that he would not be disturbed by the demons, but now he would go in any case. Prabhupada was ready to leave, but the delays and anxieties persisted. Balavanta returned from Calcutta, but Srila Prabhupada was not pleased to see him. Why? He demanded. He had come back without Abhiram. Balavanta said he had wanted to be with Srila Prabhupada, and he thought that Abhiram could handle the last step of getting the green card. Prabhupada reprimanded Balavanta, saying service to the Guru was better than being with him. I repeat, Prabhupada reprimanded Balavanta, saying service to the Guru was better than being with him. Then Tamal Krishna left for Delhi to arrange for tickets. When 2 days later Srila Prabhupada learned that there might be a delay of several days before Tamal Krishna and other American in the party could leave India, he said he could leave immediately without them, taking Shrutakirti as his servant. Then Prabhupada heard of an airport strike in London, and the night before his scheduled departure, his health worsened. Many devotees urged him not to go, but amazingly, the tickets and passport arrived, and at midnight on August 28th, after a 6-month stay in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada and his party left from the front gate of the Krishna Balaram Temple Mandir and headed for Delhi in a caravan of cars. Just as Prabhupada was leaving, Bisan Chandra Seth, a friend of Prabhupada's in Vrindavan, had come and protested, "It will not be good if something happens and you leave your body outside of Vrindavan." Prabhupada told Mr. Seth that because his disciples were so much in love with him, he could not easily refuse their request. If the trip became too difficult, he said he would return immediately. He told Mr. Seth that he was simply depending on Krishna. Prabhupada rode lying on a mattress in the back seat of his car, and after 2 hours of driving over roads greatly damaged by flooding, they reached Delhi airport. Srila Prabhupada waited in the car. The early morning was warm and the devotees opened the car doors. Bhavananda Goswami, who had just been released from jail in Bengal, had arrived in time to see Srila Prabhupada. Bhavananda approached the car and placed his head on Prabhupada's feet. "How are you?" Prabhupada asked. Bhavananda reported that everything was improving in Mayapur. All the local sadhus and citizens were now siding with ISKCON against the hoodlums who had attacked the temple. Srila Prabhupada was moved to an airport waiting room prior to going through the custom formalities. About 10 devotees were there to see him off as he left with his party of 4, Tamal Krishna, Upendra, Pradyumna, and Pradyumna's wife Arundhati. Srila Prabhupada sat upright on the airport couch, silently fingering the beads in his bead bag. His bare feet, resting in his sandals, were slightly swollen, as were his hands. He looked to see who was present and slightly nodded to each disciple in recognition. The devotees felt there was no need for Srila Prabhupada to talk. Just being with him was wonderful and fully satisfying. He had already spoken to them fully and had given them himself in his books in many other ways. So they chanted and looked lovingly at him, up until the last moment when he went by wheelchair onto the plane. So that's the end of chapter 52. We'll start chapter 53, Krishna's Great Soldier. During the long flight, Srila Prabhupada remained solemn. His servants were helpless to alleviate the difficult situation as they might have in Vrindavan, and cigarette smoke, loud talk, and drunken laughter surrounded them. Tamal Krishna, despite his concern, did not know what to do for Srila Prabhupada or what to ask him. Srila Prabhupada had often expressed a dislike for conversations with questions like, "How are you feeling?" Prabhupada's servant knew that they could not fully understand their spiritual master's thinking, and the scriptures also warned that one should not attempt to understand the mind of a Vaishnava. But they knew their service was to relieve him by arranging for quiet, by assisting him in bathing and dressing, or by taking him to the temple for darshan or Krishna Balaram. Now, however, they were helpless to perform any of these tasks. Now, more than ever, Srila Prabhupada was in Krishna's hands. Earlier that year, in Bhuvaneshwar, he had said that his disciples, although willing to help, could not change the situation if he was inconvenienced by old age. And he had even given the example that although he might be in his opulent quarters at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, that did not mean he would not suffer inconvenience. But Tamal Krishna, being very sensitive to Prabhupada's desires and experienced in serving him, several times moved over and spoke with the spiritual master. "Srila Prabhupada," he said, "when you get to London, the devotees will be so pleased to be with you." "Yes," Srila Prabhupada replied, It is good that we are going. Otherwise, Srila Prabhupada was mostly silent, meditating on Krishna and his mission of bringing love of Krishna to the world. The flight turned out to be an unusually exhaustive ordeal. When the plane landed in Rome, it was delayed there for 4 hours, and Srila Prabhupada had to wait in the airport lounge. When finally they arrived over London, the captain announced that they could not land yet due to strike, and so they continued circling for hours. Finally, 20 hours after leaving airport, the plane landed at Heathrow Airport. Customs and immigration officials in the British Airways ground crew allowed Srila Prabhupada in a wheelchair to quickly pass through all the formalities, and soon he was amid a throng of enthusiastic disciples, and then sitting in a white Rolls-Royce en route to Bhaktivedanta Manor. The London airport and the busy highways leading into the city are certainly a great contrast to the peace and spirituality of Vrindavan. But for Srila Prabhupada to suddenly leave the climate and transcendental culture of India to fly to the west was not unusual. He had been doing that, going from east to west, from north to south, from one nation to another, to the snowlands, to the tropics, to the cities, to the jungles, mixing with white people, black people, and Orientals at an almost constant pace for years. He was no Hindu village guru, suddenly astounded to see hundreds of automobiles racing on the highway, or to see factory smoke, or skyscrapers, or the blind rat race of the meat eaters. There was no question of culture shock for Srila Prabhupada. But there was a shock for his disciples in London, who had never imagined that he would be so thin, or that anyone could travel in such conditions. For the devotees who had been at the airport to meet him, it had been a heart-rending experience. Even those who had heard the reports of Prabhupada in Vrindavan were not emotionally prepared for such a change. Prabhupada was as transcendental as ever, or even more than ever. but the devotees were shocked at first to see him so different. Now he appeared like a powerful sage who had been undergoing long austerities for the benefit of humankind and who had become transcendental to his body, although living within it. At Bhaktivedanta Manor, Srila Prabhupada went from the car to a palanquin and entered the temple room, where about 300 disciples and well-wishers were waiting to be with him. Devotees from all the ISKCON centers in northern and southern Europe had rushed to England for a last-minute notice. They were holding kirtan for Srila Prabhupada as he entered, and they too, like the devotees at the airport, were deeply shocked. And for a moment, when they saw Srila Prabhupada wearing his dark sunglasses and appearing so thin, the kirtan almost stopped. Yet they simultaneously remained joyful and ecstatic, realizing that despite such difficulty, he had actually come to the West to be with them and encourage their Krishna consciousness. They had been praying for him for months. The prayer, "My dear Lord Krishna, if you desire, please cure Srila Prabhupada," had been printed on a banner and hung over Prabhupada's Vyasasan. The devotees of England, wanting to reciprocate with Srila Prabhupada with more than just the sentiment of their words, were also leading the world in transcendental book distribution. When a few weeks ago they had heard that Srila Prabhupada might be coming to England, it hadn't seemed possible considering his physical condition. They had heard he might leave his body at any moment, but then later they had heard he was better and he was coming to London. Even when they had heard he was definitely coming, they had been incredulous. But now it had come true. The deity room curtains were open and Srila Prabhupada beheld Radha Gokulananda. Some devotees stood in front of him and with a small gesture, characteristic of his hand, he waved them aside. Without any change of expression, he sat with concentrated attention, facing the gorgeously dressed deities of Radha Gokulananda, whom he had named 4 years ago when calling for them to come and be worshipped here by the devotees of England. Without saying a word, Prabhupada went up to his room, where as many devotees as possible joined him. He had always said he felt comfortably at home in these quarters, and once again he was pleased to see outside his window the large lawn, the lake, and the ducks. The devotees sat before him with their palms folded, aware that this was not casual meeting. They had already offered their lives completely to Srila Prabhupada, and there was nothing more they could offer in words that would equal their dedication. A devotee placed a large silver plate full of prasadam on the table before Srila Prabhupada. He picked up a milk sweet and tasted it, and then a piece of mango. The 100 devotees who squeezed into the room and looked in from the doorway watched this very movement with fixed attention. There was complete silence. Then Srila Prabhupada looked up smiling. So he said, "Is everyone all right?" "Jai Srila Prabhupada," was the warm reply. The tension of seeing Srila Prabhupada's different appearance suddenly melted, and everyone simply wanted to make him feel comfortable and to please him with their service. For the rest of the day, Srila Prabhupada remained alone, resting. Tamal Krishna lectured to the devotees in the temple room, explaining how Srila Prabhupada had decided it was better to travel, even at such a great risk, than to be invalid. Tamal Krishna told how someone had suggested Srila Prabhupada to go to Tehran or Italy or France because of the airport strike in London, but how he had said, "I want to go to London." "Srila Prabhupada had come to take shelter of you," said Tamal Krishna. He said that, according to Shastra, a devotee should stay in Vrindavan, especially at the end of life. But because Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master had ordered him to go to the West and preach, he had returned, determined to fulfill that mission until the last. The devotees were deeply touched that Srila Prabhupada's coming was at least partially in recognition of their preaching. They resolved to reciprocate with him while he was there by holding a book distribution marathon. If they showed him their dedication by preaching, maybe he would stay strong he would stay a long time. At 2 o'clock the next morning, Bhagavan and Tamal Krishna went to Srila Prabhupada's quarters to attend him. Srila Prabhupada, who had just awakened, was very pleased to see Bhagavan, his leader from southern Europe. This was why he had come to West, to be with his preachers and to be encouraged by them. Tamal had brought me with great difficulty, said Srila Prabhupada. It was the correct thing, I thought. What is the use of dying? Better to come. So Krishna Balaram has placed me in the care of Radha Gokulananda. Bhagwan presented Srila Prabhupada with some newly printed books, an Italian Bhagavad Gita as it is, another volume of Srimad Bhagavatam in French, and other books in Dutch. The total book distribution in Europe, Bhagwan reported, had surpassed that of America. Tamal, did you hear that? Prabhupada asked. This is my life. Come here. Srila Prabhupada began rubbing Bhagwan's head, and tears fell from his eyes. You have no problem, he said to Bhagwan. In his own work on Srila Prabhupada's behalf, Bhagwan had been encountering a rough period, but when Srila Prabhupada said, You have no problems, he took it that if he persevered, everything would be all right. As long as he stayed engaged in the devotional service, he had no problems. For Bhagavan, there was no need for Prabhupada to say more. Prabhupada's order was already in his heart and soul. But now that order and Srila Prabhupada's love entered deeper into his heart. Srila Prabhupada's mood was one of pure thankfulness, without his usual critical instructions. He simply wanted to be with his devotees and encourage them. Produce books, said Srila Prabhupada. These books are all the mercy of my Guru Maharaj. No author throughout the world has written so many books. Shakespeare, Milton, Dickens, neither their books have been so widely read or with such appreciation. When Prabhupada came down to the temple in the morning, all the devotees were able to be with him. Devotees here are Vaikuntha men, said Srila Prabhupada. Good looking and nice dressing. Gokulananda is so beautiful. I shall be glad to die in that condition amongst the devotees and see Gokulananda. I think we can stop here. This is so moving to see Srila Prabhupada in this condition, traveling just to encourage the devotees, and even at the time of such grave difficulties from a bodily perspective, he thought how he could serve his disciples, in what way he could serve his disciples. This is so moving, and the disciples in turn were pleasing Srila Prabhupada by distributing books. So maybe this month of December we should try to distribute as many books as possible and please Srila Prabhupada. Would anybody like to share anything? Add?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. One instruction what Srila Prabhupada gave in the beginning of our reading, that it is better to be serving your spiritual master, than being with him. And we see how further in our reading at the end, when Bhagwan Prabhu was doing that, Srila Prabhupada was so pleased with him, serving his Guru Maharaj by his instructions, preaching, book distribution. These are some things which pleases Srila Prabhupada the most. So this is a very important instruction. I thought, we are all holding that to our heart, and, we can appreciate it more, that we are not with our spiritual masters, not with Srila Prabhupada, but we are following their instructions, and we can do more of it to please them even more. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Yes, those are very important instructions. Serving a Guru is more important than being with him physically. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Hare Guru Prabhu.
Hare
Yeah, on the same thought, I was also thinking, like, Prabhupada himself is leading the way, right? Again, we say again and again, he's Acharya who preaches by their Achar, and Acharya is one who walks the talk. So even Prabhupada himself, we see here how he is following his Guru Maharaj's instruction, right? So he's saying again and again, and first he was saying, it will be good to, according to Shastra, it is wonderful if you leave your body in Vrindavan. But again, he remembers his Guru Maharaj's instruction, who told him to go and preach in West. So, it doesn't matter. He says, I'm just depending on Krishna. This is what, August. So just, at 81 years of age, he's so thin, but he is following his Guru Maharaj's instruction that he wanted him to go to preach to West. So he's traveling to London and then eventually to New York and LA. But yeah, we see again how he himself is showing how he is following his Guru Maharaj's instruction to the core of his heart. And like you said at the beginning, so many, we see the same mood and quality in Prabhupada's disciples also, right? Like I was just watching yesterday Mataji's class here at home while I was at home, and we were admiring, like, again, I forget, her age, but she also looks very much, in the same category as Prabhupada, right? And like at that age, all these Prabhupada disciples, without caring for their own personal comfort, they are traveling all over the city. She was saying, like, she had come to Cincinnati when she was a kid, and her parents grew up here, or her father grew up here, and she was so happy to be in Cincinnati. So, it's our good fortune that, such exalted Vaishnavis are coming and blessing our congregation. But, the same mood they have, like, because their spiritual master told them to preach. So, even though she has done so much, right? I mean, she can easily say, I've served for 30 years, 35 years, but even at this age, they're traveling all over, and they're inspiring so many of us, the next generation. So we see it's really evam parampara praptam, everything coming in the disciplic succession. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother Adbhut Prabhu, for sharing, that observing that Prabhupada was following his Guru's instruction and Prabhupada's disciples are following their Guru's instruction. So it behooves us to follow our instructions, and Srila Prabhupada is our Jagat Guru, so Srila Prabhupada's instructions we all should follow. So thank you, Prabhu, so much. Anybody else would like to add anything?
Pravakar Prabhu usually has something to say. Pravakar Prabhu or Sangeeta Mataji or Pavan Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
I want to share something that we had learned so many things from Prabhupada. That his determination that I need to go to London and to meet the devotees. There is a proverb in Hindi, सिद्धत अगर किसी को चाहता है तो कयामत मिला देता है. So अगर हम सिद्धत से कृष्ण को चाहेंगे तो एक दिन हम कृष्ण को मिल सकते हैं. That's what I want to say. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for sharing that. Okay, so if everybody has shared that they want to share, we can end by chanting Vaishnava Pranam. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Hare Krishna.